There is only one real problem in the world, and it doesn't matter whether the desired accomplishment is managing a sports team, building a business, or running an empire. The problem is the same: leadership. Because of the tremendous consequences involved and outcomes that affect the lives of so many, the importance of leadership is immutable through the ages and highly relevant into the future. Welcome to the Leadership Lyceum, a CEO's virtual mentor. Now, here's your host, Tom Lindquist.
You've entered the Leadership Lyceum. We'll bring you direct access to top CEOs and directors of boards in an interview format that provides insight on situational issues that confront CEOs every day. Think of it as a CEO's virtual mentor. Moving to CEO from CFO is a major step. Taking the step while making a move into a new organization adds yet another degree of difficulty. But add financial distress, bankruptcy, and expectations toward growth and value creation upon the emergence, it's a tall order for any new CEO, or for any CEO for that matter. We'll be right back with Bob Flexon, CEO of Dynegy. It's my pleasure to feature my interview with Bob Flexon, CEO of Dynegy in Houston. Dynegy is a $5.5 billion revenue independent power producer in the U.S. operating 26,000 megawatts of power generating facilities in 8 states. Bob celebrates this month his 5th anniversary with Dynegy. It's been a remarkable 5 years. Let's cover the scarlet days. Bob joined Dynegy in June of 2011, and in year 1 of his tenure led the company through orderly bankruptcy proceedings. Dynegy emerged from bankruptcy during year 2, and prior to the end of year 2, acquired the power generation assets of utility company Ameren in St. Louis for $900 million. Early in his 4th year, Dynegy completed the simultaneous acquisition of Duke's Midwest power generation assets for $2.8 billion and Equipower Resources for $3.45 billion, which doubled Dynegy's net power generating capacity. During his 5th year, Dynegy announced the acquisition of French company Engie's North American power generation portfolio through a joint venture with Energy Capital Partners, a private equity group. This will increase Dynegy's capacity by another 50%, achieving a total net generating capacity of 32,000 megawatts, or enough power capacity to supply about 31 million homes. Happy anniversary, Bob. This is an impressive list of accomplishments for which my quick summary does little justice. Each of these major events in the reformation of Dynegy have their own extraordinary complexity and associated drama in their achievement. But this is not a story about the impressive execution of transactions, which really warrant a feature on their own. It's a glimpse into how a successful CEO has addressed the hardest parts to get right in an organization: the environment, the culture, the people. Part 1 of this 2-part interview with Bob uncovers what he did first in his tenure to address the human side of the leadership equation, his considerations for and dedication to the needs of the flesh and blood that run an organization, the human operating system, if you will. Stay tuned, and we'll be right back with the interview. There are many experiences in your background that are formative for a CEO in the making. And although your first experience at CEO was Foster Wheeler, I'd like to start with Dynegy and talk about that. And you came into the company in the middle of a distress period for Dynegy, and that led to the bankruptcy filing and emergence with your first year on the job. Share your experience and how your background prepared you for the type of environment you found yourself in coming to Dynegy.
Sure, Tom, and I'd start out by saying joining Dynegy, we knew it would be a challenging environment. The one thing that I did coming out of the gate was ensure that we had a team, an experienced team that can hit the ground running. So when I came and joined Dynegy, I brought with me a half a dozen or so people that I had worked with in the past. Virtually all of them were at NRG at the time. So knowing that it's quite a challenging environment, a key to success is the team that you're with. And being surrounded by some very good, talented, team-oriented folks really made our entree here into Dynegy that much easier and set us up for a better chance of success than if I otherwise had come by myself.
Mm-hmm. I see. How did you select that team, or what were the areas?
But these are people we've worked together in, so really gave us a comprehensive team to come in here, and why that was a huge benefit for us coming in. The balance of the employees at Dynegy, suddenly see all these people coming in with NRG passports, and it's like, this is Dynegy, this isn't NRG. So right away you have to work and develop the trust with the existing Dynegy employees, and you really have to work hard at assimilating into one team. And what I've always said since I came to Dynegy, it's one team, it's one goal, and we want to be the best IPP, the best power producer out there. And that's something that we've stayed true to over the years, but it was really important coming out of the gate to break down the barriers and any thoughts that if you didn't come from NRG, you don't have a future here, because that certainly wasn't the case. But in situations like that, where you're in a distressed environment, people are worried about their future and their careers, and when you have all these strangers coming in together as a team, you could easily see a situation developing, insiders versus outsiders,
right.
And you don't want the the organism to reject the foreign bodies coming in. So I think we worked hard at doing that. It takes time, but I would say if there's something I look back on and view that really proud of, I would say it's the camaraderie, it's the teamwork, it's the one team, the one goal philosophy I think has come to light here. And when you do acquisitions, you almost have to start over again with all of that, as in the broader topic of culture. So we constantly have to go back to that. But it clearly is the key to our success has been driven by the opportunity to bring us together and work as a team.
I know that you did a pretty sweeping cultural transformation, a formal one, and Senn Delaney was involved in that. Talk about that, what you did from that perspective. I can imagine that it probably helped those people that were at Dynegy when you started bringing in your former NRG colleagues, that maybe the cultural shaping helped.
So we had a strong relationship with Senn Delaney. Kevin Howe came in as the COO. Kevin had experience with Senn Delaney when he was at Dominion. So now you're back in early 2000, 1990s time frame or so. And so with NRG emerging from bankruptcy in 2004, late 2003, early 2004, Kevin joined NRG after I did. I came in March of 2004. One of the things that we knew that we needed to do, along with David Crane, was to work on the culture of NRG. So we utilized Senn Delaney to help us then as well.
I see.
And our movement to Dynegy, and again with Kevin coming with me to Dynegy and living in the environment that I just described, when we got here, we knew that the restructuring here was about the financial restructuring, the organizational restructuring, but most important of all, the cultural restructuring. And our familiarity with working with Senn Delaney, which brings a very common sense oriented toolbox of how do you build and how do you shape culture with a purpose. We were very comfortable with the approach that Senn Delaney brings to that, and we've been using Senn Delaney ever since.
Let's take a quick break. Indulge me for a moment to add some deeper behavioral science groundings as a backdrop to the discussion on culture that continues with Bob. There are parallels that can be drawn between the impact of so-called life events on us as individuals and the impact of, let's call them, business events on us as employees and as a functioning organization. We can all imagine the impact of major life events such as job change, divorce, a home move, a death of a loved one, or a major illness in our stress levels. Imagine your state of mind having all of these events happen to you over, say, a 2-year period. I don't mean to stress you out. But we can also imagine major business events having the same impact on stress levels in employees of an organization, and therefore a collective and magnified effect on the organization as a whole. We would argue that Bob's early focus on culture and getting that culture well established in the organization helped the organization, among other benefits, to deal better with stresses and challenges that would ensue on the road to success. Let's listen for more.
For acquisitions that we do, we put folks through the Senn Delaney training, so you start, talking about things that relate to culture in the same language, like what does shadow of the leader mean? It certainly means that we all cast the shadow, and that's what shapes an organization. That's what shapes culture. Or it could be a cultural point to, providing coaching and feedback and the importance of it. Or listening is another topic that you focus on. How do you participate in active listening? Active listening, not being judgmental, but listening to understand and listening to exchange viewpoints. So there's a number of tools that go through that can really help you actually shape culture, while it can be somewhat of a nebulous topic or something that's hard to get your arms around. The Senn Delaney approach brings tools and methods that will influence and shape how culture develops in a company, and it gives us the opportunity to shape culture, as we say, rather than the culture shaping you. And so Senn Delaney's been an important part of our success here at Dynegy, and honestly, it's been a successful part of shaping the culture at other places. And just a quick story, the first acquisition that we did with Ameren, we were in the conference room meeting with Tom Voss and the Ameren team, and looking around the walls, and you see on the posters on the wall, all the same thing, about curiosity, shadow of the leader, honesty, integrity, and all those different things that Senn Delaney teaches. And so Ameren was a Senn Delaney company.
They were. Tom is a very large proponent of Senn Delaney, and I can imagine that created some comfort.
It does. So, when we acquired the Ameren assets, we were not the best financial offer for them, but it was important to Tom Voss as well to have the assets go to an organization that shared similar cultural values and principles, which compliments to Tom for thinking that way. And it brought our two organizations that much closer together, that much faster, because we have a lot of the same shared values or same shared ideologies on how an organization should work together. So that was actually something that really, I think, helped us in our first acquisition.
Did it provide a framework for you for going from CFO, and I know you went to CEO at Foster Wheeler, but in coming in, did that help provide you some tools to focus more on CEO duties than maybe what you had done in the past?
It absolutely does. And the reason I say that is the CEO really influences an organization by the tone that's set. If you can drive the right culture, if you're visible, your employees feel comfortable with you, you're leading with the values of the company, whether it's integrity or whether it's agility is one of the values that we put out there. It gives an organization a benchmark on what are they driving towards. And when you think about what we did, doing two acquisitions simultaneously, announcing it in August of 2014, that doubled the size of the company. It was double the size of our enterprise value. We had to raise the financing in the debt markets and the equity markets. The agility to be able to do that, simultaneous due diligence, simultaneous closings. The counterparties of each didn't know about the other. And in the case with ECP, we were competing against them on the Duke Midwest asset. So it's
very interesting. I did not realize that.
It's a small community, but practicing what it means to be agile in an organization. And coming back to the whole thing about Senn Delaney, one of the first things you do with Senn Delaney as a leader is you design and define what is your purpose, what do you want to be known for. And for us, it's powering communities. Right, and when that's powering communities, that can be not only through electrification of the grid, but it's also being a responsible member of that community. It's also about providing great jobs for employees and a great work environment for employees. And then we think about your values. What do you want to be known for? How do you want people to think about you? You certainly want people to think about us as a safe, responsible organization. I mentioned agility. I mentioned integrity. But that's what you want to be known for. So that sets kind of the beacon of what you're chasing.
Let's take a break. We'll be right back Stay tuned. We're back with Bob Flexon, CEO of Dynegy. Bob, did you have your own individual purpose that formed out of those reflective moments with Senn Delaney's involvement? Did you form a purpose around you as a CEO, or was it mostly focused on the organization?
Senn Delaney makes you focus first and foremost on yourself and your behaviors and your actions, because that's what's going to start, driving the culture. So, I mentioned before the shadow of the leader. So not only but for me, but my direct reports, we're going to cast a shadow that the organization's going to follow. And kind of like the expression, you have a lot of the posters around the walls and everything, but it's kind of off the walls and into the halls. It's what we do as a leadership team, what I do as a leader of the organization, what my direct reports as leadership of many functions. It's the shadow that we cast, which is going to start defining how people form their own behaviors and how they conduct themselves throughout the organization. And that's what ultimately is going to shape the culture. And we are a management team that we want to focus on communication, involvement, visibility, and obviously you're here in our office and you can see we don't have offices. It's important for us to sit with our groups, to be visible on the floor. It's just one big wide open floor, and it's about walking around, it's about engaging with people, it's about making sure that they realize that, one, we appreciate what they do, that what they're doing creates value, and we actually demonstrate concern and care for their career and being part of the team. And again, that all comes back to a lot of the Senn Delaney teachings, and a lot of it also is common sense. But in terms of coming into Dynegy, that's what I wanted to do, and the team that came with me wanted to do, is to work through the tough beginnings of the restructurings, to work through the tough beginnings of being accepted by the broader organization, and build a place where people want to come to work, they're proud of what they do, and maybe most of all, the change for Dynegy is what it's like to win again. And I don't want to sound like Donald Trump. We never win anymore. But Dynegy went through a really tough time prior to us arriving here. The entire executive management team resigned. The board of directors resigned. 2 failed takeovers, and so that's the environment that we came into, and knowing that there was probably a bankruptcy 4 or 5 months down the road, which ultimately there was.
Bob, what was your message to the employee base?
So when you're in that environment, anybody who could leave was leaving the company or about to leave the company, and so the question that you get a lot when you first came here, when we first came here, is why should I stay here? And so the first message that I constantly put out there, both internally and in the media, so employees could read it, was I didn't move to Houston to sell the company, nor did any of the other direct reports that moved here with me came here to sell the company. We're here to build a company. We're here to make Dynegy the best independent power producer in the country. So full stop, that's it. I'm not looking to sell the company. That's not why I'm here. If that was going to be the case, I wouldn't have joined. And so teaching the organization how to win again was a big thing. And people will hear it. They won't necessarily believe it, but you do your first acquisition, you think, okay, we haven't done this for a long time. And then you do a dual acquisition, and suddenly you're 3 times larger than what you were in October of 12. People now are getting the joke and recognizing that, yeah, we're doing what we said we were going to do. And I'd say one of the proudest days that we've had here is when the Houston Chronicle, after we announced the dual acquisitions in August of 2014, and I guess the lead story in the business page is that it was labeled Dynegy back among the power elite. And for an organization to see someone from the outside referring to us that way, it's like, things are different. Right? Things are different, and that just, feeds the culture and feeds the enthusiasm. And I think the other thing is it's really important for us to be visible in the plants. And in so many locations, you'd get feedback that we've never seen a CEO, or a CEO hasn't been here since the 1990s. And so you get out to the plants, you talk to them, and you actually, I think the most important trait for a CEO, particularly when they're in front of employees, is really just to be honest and open about everything you possibly can. There's certainly sometimes there's inside information that you can't put out there for legal reasons, but I think it's really important to be realistic, honest, and open with the employees, particularly in tough times. And the coal industry and coal generators, which we have quite a few coal plants, have been under great stress the past couple of years, and the future is looking very challenging. And it's important to go out to the coal plants and have an open discussion around those things. And I get a lot of feedback from plants saying, we really appreciate, one, you being here, and two, for being so open with us. And even though not everything we heard is what we'd like to hear, at least we know what we have to be thinking about. And anything in life and communications, if you don't put the story out there and you leave people to fill in the story for themselves, they're going to write their own story. And it's really important to fill that void with real information, so folks have an honest way to assess what's best for them. And I think that maybe drives more of a feeling in a company than anything else, because certainly if you're with people that you respect and people that respect you and treat you well and are very open and honest, why leave? Why go somewhere else? Let's fight through this thing. I love walking across the floor here and engaging with the employees here. There's a lot of enthusiasm and motivation, and people want to do a good job. There isn't any independent power producer that's done more than us to transform what we were and what are we becoming. And that's, again, driven by an organization that is enthusiastic, wants to win, and has the right environment to allow people to perform their best.
We hope you enjoyed our visit with Bob Flexon, CEO of Dynegy. Bob's early focus on organizational culture and addressing the human operating system at the outset of his tenure set up the critical organizational and human side elements to cope with, if not thrive in, the major business events that would ensue. If you'd like to explore culture shaping in deeper fashion, please visit the Senn Delaney website. That's SENNDELANEY.com. Tell them you heard about them in the Leadership Lyceum. That ends part one of a two-part interview with Bob Flexon. Look for a conclusion to the interview in the coming days. Or perhaps it's there right now. In part two, we'll explore Bob's leadership in the bankruptcy, the value of mentors, and his advice to CFOs, CEOs, and boards toward development of CEO successors. And don't miss an episode with your virtual mentor. The Leadership Lyceum, a CEO's virtual mentor, has been a production of Dinosaur Productions, LLC. Copyright 2016, all rights reserved. Come back and listen. It's lonely at the top.